makes the matrix even more complicated.
That's what I'm here for.
Okay, Mike. Well, thank you. Appreciate that.
No problem.
Jeff, I know this is your show. We sort of took it over for a while. Thank you for allowing us to do that.
Oh, no worries. It's just always converts to kind of just a hangout. So we're in hangout mode now. I just our stream from Zoom died a while ago, so I just hit restart on it, but kind of too late now. But I just wanted to make sure that it would work, and it is back up. So there'll be 2 up there. So just testing that.
Okay, Mike, if I can give you a quick
Yes.
PTZ demo of how quick this changes and how well it focuses in. If you can give me some feedback on that,
Sure.
it'd be interesting. It'd be interesting to see what you say. I mean, these are just different settings with different lighting conditions that I have, but from what I've seen, it's pretty smart.
Yeah. Yeah. The autofocus is pretty quick. Yeah. Again, of course, you got the because it really, at that particular point, it is what it is, right? So
one extreme to the other, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, when in the PTZ world, even in the production of PTZ world, the less zooming you do, the better. The more panning and tilting you can do, if you can keep the zoom at a pretty constant scenario, you'll have a lot quicker of seeing changes, especially when you're doing between presets, right? So if you go from preset A to preset B, the more that it'll do the pan and tilt, but it might do the zoom last, which is what you notice with this one on you. So again, if you can stick with the pan and tilting on the scenario of the pan and tilting first and try to eliminate your zooms as much as possible, the better. Because again, the more you zoom, the more it's going to have to autofocus as well, right? Because the autofocus will do its best. If you pan and tilt, it'll just autofocus because the zoom's already there, right? But if it has to pan, tilt, zoom, the final thing is going to be autofocus, especially if you have it enabled, right?
Yeah, I'm with you, but I don't think we do any of our work like that, because we would switch to a different camera before we switch to another preset and then come back to it once it's
that's the ideal
but
situation.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, that's exactly how it's behaving.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, it is, unless you get into the really, really expensive ones, and it's not necessarily the sensor that's the issue, and it's not necessarily the motors that are an issue, or even the zoom. There's some marketing out there of some of the brands that will say that, oh, we do everything simultaneously. You do and you don't. It's really, because again, everything is a command. If we get back to how, Jeff has gone through and done the companion stuff, right? Everything is still an official command. If I'm telling the PTZ to go to, home mode, which you've probably seen in a lot of the cameras, there's home mode, right? That is a preset of zoom this, zoom, pan here, tilt here, zoom here, boom, right? This is my home position. In our cameras, you can actually program the home position to be a different position than the factory as well.
Okay.
Yeah, it's one of those hidden things. But yeah, so as far as again, as far as the mechanisms, as far as Visca is concerned, because again, that's the protocol that a lot of the controllers will use to, even in companion, you can use for our cameras is to, again, it's a command, but again, it's a Visca command that's happening that, okay, pan here, tilt here, zoom here, then the autofocus just kicks in, because if you have it disabled, it'll be manual. right? If you have the autofocus on, that's going to be the last, the pan tilt zoom is going to be what you're actually controlling. But if you have the manual on or auto or manual, then the lens goes, hey, this is out of focus. And then it goes nuts, right? So, and that's the main scenario there, is that when you're doing the different, so in what particular order does it go? It's up to the VISCA protocol, actually. And it depends on the command that is actually sent out of the controller first, right? So if it's a pan first, then tilt, then zoom, that's why it's better to do pan and tilt, because those two will just fight against each other in the protocol. And then if you still have to tell it to zoom as well, you're almost better to tell it to zoom first, then pan tilt. But again, then it's the order of the commands that you're sending to the camera. So the zoom as it's panning and tilting will happen, right? But again, it just depends on how you're sending the commands to the actual camera itself. Now, some of the PTZ controllers are smart enough to send the zoom first and then pan and then tilt. But again, it's still going to autofocus if you have it on once it gets to that final preset location that's been programmed in that you save, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, good. Thank you. Appreciate that, Mike.
Yeah, no problem. There's again, it's all on the, it'll all come down for you when you're playing with PTZs on what mechanism is controlling the PTZ. What is sending the commands? Is it going to be Companion? Is it going to be vMix? Is it going to be some other software? Is it going to be even a hardware controller, right? So there's all the different stuff. But yeah, I just saw that. But that's very sensitive autofocus. A little too sensitive for my liking. But yeah, that would be the only critique that I've seen from that camera that you're using today.
Yeah. Okay, good. I am going to leave you guys, good people.
How do you control your PTZ optics cams, Robert?
It's all presets that we use.
Just
because we are usually in a conference situation, so it's all presets. And when we in a conference room itself, I don't use any auto tracking. I don't use any because we do have a what's it called, RS-232 controller, and I've tried it over IP as well. It's all doable, but I haven't found the exact workflow that we need to do that. Because, like I said, we have the comfort of being able to switch to a different camera, zoom in and move around and focus into what we want to zoom in, and then switch back. And so we've stayed away from looking at all of the automation. However, Epiphan sort of intrigued me because I think this is their background of making remote control equipment for PTZs and for that's what they showed me, that they have this box that they send out to people, that the people, they just connect cameras and PTZ cameras to that. And then when someone's doing a production, they have complete control from within Epiphan itself before they do the switching to just control and move around whatever they want. That's what they showed me. Yeah. I don't see a use case for that in my situation. That's not the sort of work we do. But definitely, and I've had this discussion with Mike over this week, the last 2 days, the Rode Extreme Streamer X, seems to be for the executive, for the VPs, to have those 2 or 3 buttons in front of them, no other level of complication, and have their cameras plugged in, which their assistant or the IT can do straight away with a good microphone. And that's sort of the what you'd call that parcel kit that you referred to, Mike, that we with an instruction that we were looking at putting together.
Yeah. Again, it's similar to, office hours, he also has his own kit. It's more of a higher end kit. His kit is probably easily $3,000-$4,000 US of a kit. But again, it'll come down to, what you're needing the executive to actually have as part of the kit. Send it lights. There's been other production companies that actually have made themselves their own kits as well, and it's a company based out of the New York called LiveX. But again, they're more heavier on the production side, and they also have their own cloud infrastructure in place and such. So they actually send out PCs that have vMix in it, in a rack, in a I think it was a 4U 6U high rack, and in there was actually the wireless microphone goes in there, the vMix PCs in there, their 4G 5G routers in there, the what else is in there? There was something else, and then of course they also have they send a PTZ camera with it. It's a Panasonic PTZ camera that they send with it, tripod for that, and 2 if not 3 softbox lights, so that the executive, now again, they get hired by higher end clientele, right? They're also the same guys that bring in, they're the ones that get the contract every year for Times Square in New York City. So that is their main gig every year. And they also came up with their LiveX platform that also rivals against what Epiphan is trying to do now as well. So it'll be probably a matter of time before LiveX also incorporates Zoom into their cloud products as well. But again, a lot of LiveX bases their stuff off of SRT. So they're sending SRT feeds back from the location to their cloud and then mixing it in the cloud. And then if they have to add more to it, then they bring it back to their studio.
Mm-hmm. Because traditionally, what we've been doing with clients like that is we've been sending out mics so that we have good audio quality, because we're in the interpretation business. That's our number one business, yeah. Right. And so everything else has been secondary, but we're getting more and more requests like, "Hey, I want to look like someone else who's on the meeting or the webinar. Why do I look so bad? What's wrong with my equipment?" Unless someone, and what I usually find is someone comes on, he says he's got a Mac Pro or something like that, laptop, then we have no issues at all. But in the corporate environment, not everyone has access to Mac equipment.
Right. And again, if I'm an IT person from eons ago, I'm not going to give out Macs unless I have to. Because trying to be an IT person taking care of a Mac is the infrastructure is not really in place. It's more of a Microsoft world. So so you'll have your hodgepodge of webcam built into laptops that, again, never should be using, but people will use. But yeah, your mileage will vary a lot in that regards. What I have done in the past, executive wise, have been, and again, it really depends on budget, is going down a couple of different roads of what cameras I would actually send to the site. And again, when definitely making the actual kit itself, and this is something that I actually stole a little bit from the Voice in the US, which is, the Voice competition. There's multiples in different countries. And basically what ended up happening during the COVID lockdown was that the Voice was actually stopped production, but they wanted to keep going. So they actually sent out kits to all the judges at home, and they brought all their feeds back via using Microsoft Teams. And of course, Microsoft was sponsoring and but yeah, so they ended up sending out a full kit, and it was kind of funny because they actually videotaped the judges actually setting up all the equipment and everything, and you could see that they were given basically a little 5-page manual with pictures, as if it was like, this cable goes in here. Now plug this into here next, right? And it was kind of funny, but again, the personnel back at the studio had less of a problem after they sent out this, as I was telling you, a 5-year-old document that a 5-year-old could set up all the equipment, than they did if they just sent all the kit and said, yeah, here. And then they would be on, for hours tweaking here, tweaking there. So it definitely helped out them because, again, they ended up getting, they had all the contestants at their houses. So they sent them all kits. And at that time, I think there was like 10 contestants left and 4 judges. So they ended up sending like almost 20 of these kits. And it was Focusrite audio interfaces for the audio. They were bringing in, everybody had Lear microphones. I don't remember what brand. As far as cameras were concerned, I believe they ended up sending them DSLRs at the time. So they ended up buying a bunch, but again, everything was standardized, right? So everybody had the same, so they knew that automatically what their look was going to be is what is going to be, right? And again, of course, they ended up broadcasting live to US. Well, we got it here in Canada as well, but the major market for them was US television.
Mm-hmm. But the biggest challenge that I've had when I've done that is with the lighting, not with the sound, not with the camera, but with the lighting. Because working with people getting lighting set up, because the people who haven't worked with light or don't understand light don't know what the effect is. What happens when you start mixing LEDs with natural light? What happens when you've got another light source in the room and you've got these other light? It's easy to see it's easy to fix when you see it and tell them exactly what to do. But then you get out of that process of giving them an instruction and they set up and they just switch on.
Right. So again, what ends up happening too, and this is something that even, there's that.
Just happening again.
Yeah, I saw that again. And so the suggestion would definitely be, of course, is to, depending on how many executives you'll have in your meeting, of course, would depend on how many extra crew that you're doing to make sure that they set up ahead of time. But again, sending lights and telling them to shut everything off in the room, the best. The best.
But it just doesn't happen though.
Yeah, I know. But that, for the most part, without actually physically having somebody go there and put up pipe and drape, to block out windows and to actually have somebody actually set up all the technical gear. Oh, there goes again. Yeah.
I thought it was on manual.
How's that manual doing? Yeah, manual focus. So yeah, so that would be definitely, again, if you can't afford the crew to go out and do it. But again, of course, if they're that high end of a executive client, then of course it makes perfect sense to send 1 or 2 out there. So you got one on camera and one just monitoring audio at that particular point when the event is starting. But you also have 2 people, both people actually setting up the room, prepping the room and such.
I did an event a couple of months ago where we sent out kit and we were looking for people to go on site. And where I found the best people to work on these projects? At the film school. The film school guys know audio, they know lighting, they know framing. It became so obvious once we got them in place, but it took me such a long time to figure that out.
Yeah. And again, a lot of them want the experience too, Robert. So
yeah,
chances are they'll do it for next to nothing, if not for nothing, just to, so that they can go back to their teacher and say, "Oh yeah, I was working on a blah 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 gig. Robert had me working on a gig this weekend doing da 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 da." Right?
Yep.
And
That
if
is
you
exactly
get in, and if you get in with the teacher, even better too, because the teacher will go, "Oh, I'll send you. How many you need?" And then they'll be putting up their hands. Pick me, pick me.
But doesn't he become a middleman then?
Well, again, it benefits him. I'm when it comes to monetization, that's up to you. But what I'm saying is there have been events in the past that, I've used volunteers as well for such events. And you're right. It's better for me to go to the performing arts guys or the film school guys because they're eager to help, eager to learn, eager to be put on a set so that they get that experience, because they're all, depending on the school, it'll only get as practical as they can get, right?
They just don't have exposure to real world live events. And that's right.
And the teacher will love you because if you give him opportunity for his students to go on and actually be able to do this for you, you might get a lot of free labor, but you'll also get, if you trust the way the teacher is teaching his students, you will almost guarantee your quality level then too, right?
Yeah, that is what I noticed. That's just it. And apart from that, they speak the same language, because you when you start talking about light, you know what light you're talking about. When you're talking about framing, they know exactly what you're talking about. It becomes such an easier conversation.
That's right. When you say to them, "Oh no, tighter shot," they'll know. Oh no, you want a tighter shot on his face, and all you say was tighter shot, 2 words, right? Or no, I want wider shot. All of a sudden they know. Okay, wide enough? No, wider. Okay, right? Yeah. They'll be able, again. It's all about the production cues at that particular point when you're talking to people in the production world, right? That's why I stay myself. If I do give volunteers, I do go after that, like you were mentioning, the film school or those type of people. But a lot of the freelance guys that I deal with when I do live events are all production guys. I won't bring in any guys that are, guys that have their home studio and are learning vMix, right? I will bring in my audio guy that does, concerts for, every band underneath the sun. And I tell them, quote unquote, I want an aux mix coming out of the board, but I want everything. And then that's full stop. I say nothing else. He knows that everything that is getting plugged in, and if there isn't things that are plugged in, plug more microphones in, bring more microphones. I don't have to say anything anymore, any less, right? He just knows that, okay, Mike, you want crowd? I want crowd. Yeah. Mikey, you want the drums? Yes, I want the drums. Because again, a lot of venues won't mic drums, right? As an example. Then all of a sudden in the stream, you hear nothing from the drums unless it gets picked up by the lead singer coming through his microphone, right? Great. Fantastic. That's just awesome. And again, you'll notice the caliber of production people that you use will definitely, and again, if you go back to them, and this is something that I ended up doing too, because I've been webcasting for 20 years. So there are my go-to camera guys. There's go-to camera guys that I put on tripods and go-to camera guys that I put on over the shoulders, right? I say to them, always give me a shot, right? At all times, to make sure that I always have a shot. Oh, Jeff, is that you?
I think Jeff's rung the bell for us to go home.
It's me. I'm going to start pumping in some entertainment.
Oh, okay. All right. Did I do something wrong? Is this the, this is the hook? This is the hook. Okay, there we go.
No, if you guys want to stay, I'll give one of you hosts though, because my wife's poking in and I do need to drop.
Yeah, sure.
But hey, let me put a quick tail on this show and I'll be right back.
Okay.